Episode 89.
Ah, very good.
Getting closer to three digits. I'm looking forward to it.
Will we get to 3 digits before the season's over?
No. Wait,
Ah,
let me think. Oh, wait, no, we will. Yeah, we will. It's 26
we have more than
per.
half a year. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's
have more than half
26
a year
per.
left. Yeah. There you go. That's exciting. But we got to get through episode 89 first. So, what do you got for today?
Nothing. That's all, folks. Episode 89 in the books. Oh, I don't have much, but we can continue with the quiz. We didn't have a chance last time to continue with the boomer quiz.
Yeah, let's finish off the boomer quiz. We only got 5 more left, so we can start there.
And I'm sure we'll have plenty of good topics from that to go on tangents with.
We'll find out, I guess. All right, here we go. We talked about the phone book last time, right?
Correct. About how they're insanely thin now.
All right, so this is where we're starting. Sent a postcard.
I have, yeah.
Okay, me too. But you don't see them like you used to.
I think they were before. Yeah, I mean, this was more for novelty as opposed to people used to do this way more often because, like, there was no other way to communicate in the old days, right?
Well, you could write a letter. You didn't have to use postcard.
You could write a letter, but it's basically the same thing. You're writing a mini letter.
It is, but the questions about the postcard. I think the thing with the postcard is a lot of people would, when you go somewhere, you'd pick up a postcard with a nice picture of it.
Mm-hmm. The place you're in, yes.
And you'd send it off to family or a friend and be like, oh, here's where I am, having a good time, all that kind of stuff.
The wish you were here.
Yeah, wish you were here. And, nowadays they just, post something on the Facebook.
That's right. Instagram, Facebook.
The digital postcards.
It's the equivalent of sending a postcard to hundreds of people, most of whom you don't know.
That's right.
So it's spam, basically. It's like spam mail in the old days.
Well, that's what Facebook really is, though. A lot of people with an opinion to a lot of people with other opinions, none of whom know each other, but share the same opinions. And they're, usually not that good. So that's social media in a nutshell. All right. Guess we're not getting a point for that one.
Oh, yeah, because its lowest score is most boomer.
That's right, yeah.
It's funny, though, because, me being in Portugal, in Porto, it's very touristy. So you do see a lot of postcards everywhere, like for sale.
Right. Oh, on the racks, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm wondering, how quickly does their supply run out? Do people buy postcards? Obviously they have plenty of other souvenirs, and people do buy them. Obviously they wouldn't be in business otherwise. But I wonder how quickly their stock of postcards goes down.
Yeah, I don't really see postcards anymore, but
Well, exactly. That's the thing. I don't remember seeing them much when I was visiting Philly, for example. I guess I know. I'm
go to
wrong.
the right
I'm wrong.
places
Yeah.
too.
They're definitely there. They're definitely there. But I feel like they're more prevalent in European cities. They're just I don't know. People are more likely to send them from here, I guess.
I think Europeans are maybe a tad bit behind, and maybe that's why. But
Yeah, we're behind the times, man. We just got
well, not
electricity last year.
right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Europe often gives off the vibe that they're still willing to do things maybe more traditional ways.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way because it's a slower pace of life. I'll completely agree with the slower pace of life mentality because why is it that a lot of American companies are just so it's such a contrast. Like, let's say somebody lives in Europe, works for an American company, they're baffled by the fact that, like, oh, American companies have what, 2 weeks vacation, whereas in Europe you get 30 days when you're starting out, just starting out. Things like that are jarring, and just the feeling that people have in America that you need to work a lot of overtime and that's normal apparently. And the other way as well, where it's a company that's American tries to go in and open an office in Europe, they find that all these extra conditions must be met because there's a lot more work-life balance that they didn't foresee.
Yeah, I know a lot of European places are a lot stricter with that. Even Canada, my bosses complain about some of this stuff in Canada too.
Your bosses being American.
No, my bosses are Canadian too, but I mean we operate both ends, both sides, right? We're lots stricter on rules in Canada. You can't let somebody go without paying them severance, and they just have more protections overall. Versus the U.S., you can just not do whatever, but
Just murder somebody in cold blood when they leave the company.
that's right. Yeah,
Nobody
just get rid
bats
of
an
'em.
eye.
Exactly. And then, yeah, Europeans stricter. And then Japan, Japan's the way to go. Just
Well, you never
look at them.
leave.
They just work all the time. They just work all the time.
Yeah, they have to hire people to help them quit a company.
Yeah. Yeah, I read about that.
That's crazy. It's so sad that because it's so ingrained in the culture, nobody really who grows up there, nobody learns how to get past that. It's like somebody who's abused as a child grows up to then become an abuser as a result, and then the cycle would continue because they'll abuse their child can. It's like the child would never get any help, and so the cycle would continue indefinitely. And I feel like that's the same in Japan because they're so closed off from the rest of the world.
Well, now they're shooting themselves in the foot because now nobody's reproducing, and
Well, exactly.
they're going to have a population crisis very soon.
It's going to be interesting. I wonder if there has been a country or region or some place where the population caused the fact that the population growth was in the negative, or however you want to phrase it, I don't know, like less than a certain number, such that it came to the point where there was nobody left in the end. But obviously this happens with animals, right? I'm sure it's the case with endangered extinct species and so on. But I wonder if there's been a country or a city that has had this happen. Like Japan's the closest that I can think of. And if let's say nothing changes in Japan, in 100 years, will there be any more people living in Japan?
I imagine there will be.
Well, but just like a hypothetical scenario, right?
I mean, it could, but what ends up happening is they increase immigration.
But okay, so that's doing something. But suppose they do nothing. Suppose they're completely head in the sand. I don't want to listen to any opinions from the Western world. We're just going to keep doing status quo. I wonder what would happen.
Well, yeah, if people don't keep reproducing, then and you don't do something about it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be immigration or whatever, but you have to do something about it at some point. Like you have to force, like you might have to force reproduction or incentivize it, things like that. But if you do absolutely nothing, then yeah, I would imagine it's not an impossibility that I'd imagine it's very likely that something would die out, a population would die out.
Do you know of any places that has had this happen in the past?
Because of reproduction, no. I mean, there's always cities and towns and stuff like that end up being abandoned and
Yeah,
for one
that's
reason
true.
or another. But
But it's not the same thing. I think they simply leave because of economics.
yeah, but specifically for reproduction, I don't know. I imagine there are certain tribes or something. It's not going to be in a populous city or something like that, or a country or anything like that. It's going to be in, especially nowadays, just going to be in tribes. Actually, I think there was. I think I do remember reading one about like maybe an Amazon tribe or something where there was only one guy left, but I don't know much about that. There's like a bajillion Amazon tribes, African tribes, South American tribes. They're all. But I think I do remember reading one. And there was only like one guy left, like one really old guy.
Just imagine being that guy, famous figure basically at this point. They could make a movie about him. The last of the and the
Oh, here
whatever
we
that
go.
name
It's
of.
called. So he was the man of the hole.
That's the tribe name, the whole.
No, this is what the man's name was dubbed. A Tanaru Indian. He was an indigenous person who lived alone in the Amazon rainforest in the Brazilian state of Rondônia. He was the sole inhabitant of the Tanaru indigenous territory. He spoke a language that nobody knew of. Nobody knows what his people were called,
Uh-huh.
or even what his name was. But he was the last surviving. Oh, this was because of genocide, though.
Oh, well, so that's
Yeah, I guess this one doesn't count. He was the last surviving member of his people following the genocide by Brazilian settlers, and chose to remain isolated.
well, I guess that's it. Japan's going to be the first.
Japan might be the first. Yeah.
We're rooting for you. Whoever survives, whoever's the last Japanese person standing. It's like a Squid Game, but very long term.
I mean, they probably still won't be the first, but they might be the first known.
Well, they have to start televising at some point when there's 1,000 people left. Who's going to be the last one standing? And then they're going to close off the borders because at this point it's like you have to go all the way. You can't let somebody sneak in and be like, "Yeah, let's start the country up again." No, at some point they're going to be like, "We've gotten this far. We have to continue it all the way through now."
I mean, likely what would happen is if it got to that, any rich people or government officials or anything like that would end up leaving the country voluntarily. They wouldn't die off. They would just leave,
But that, you know what? Once you leave Japan, it's over. It does. You don't count anymore.
and it'd be only the poor people that'd be
Yeah.
left.
Well, then
A
it's
handful of poor
exactly
people.
like a reality show at that point.
Yeah. Then they would just. I don't know if they would kill each other off because
No, they would just civilly.
they'd have the run of the. They'd have the run of the country. So
Yeah, they would just civilly continue existence, working their jobs like usual because it's so ingrained.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting hypothetical.
Somebody should make a movie about this in the future. Or even now, right? Just make a movie about it and predict what we just said, that this will become a game show of sorts.
They do. They have Squid Games and Hunger Games.
But again, those are the more fast-paced varieties where it's like active murder. I'm talking about this more long-term, no murder, no weird stuff. Just let society run its course and see what happens.
I don't know if that'd be a particularly interesting.
I didn't say it has to be interesting, but it could still win an Oscar for being artsy.
Well, if it's not interesting, I don't know if it'll win
Come
an
on,
Oscar.
how many? There's plenty of Oscar winners that are not interesting, I would say.
Well, they have some appeal. Otherwise, they wouldn't be Oscar winners.
Well, this will be appealing in the sense that it's based on a true story. People love that. People love movies that are based on true stories.
Well, but then they Hollywoodize it, so
Well, whatever.
and then it wouldn't be what you want.
So what should happen is South Korea should make the movie, and then Hollywood should remake it and say it's based on a true story, Hollywoodize it, whitewash it completely, and then there you go. And it won't be based in Japan. It'll be like, it'll be Texas. There we go. They'll just make it up for Texas for some reason.
There you go. Yeah, let's do Texas as this experiment. Anyways, next one. See, there you go. You got some conversation out of that.
That's exactly what I wanted, yeah. Something to latch on to.
Yeah, you latched. All right. Used a paper map to get somewhere.
Yes, unfortunately.
Interesting. I too have done that. I remember doing that as a kid and, getting a paper map at the gas station or something and finding our way around. Actually, for a little while, my dad moved when I was like in kindergarten or something like that. My dad moved out to British Columbia. And then, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years later, he came back here. And when he was here, he started out as a taxi driver. This was before the Ubers, and this was before the GPSs and all that. So he always had maps, the map books, the maps. Like he always had maps in his trunk and in his car and all that. So I was relatively familiar with the paper map stuff.
So you knew how to read the map.
Yeah.
Let's describe this for the people who don't really appreciate GPS and the way that their phones work nowadays. But those paper maps, they don't tell you where you are. There's no little marker indicating your position. So you have to first orient yourself on the map, and only then can you actually decide, okay, I can maybe take this road, take this street, cross over here, do this, do that.
Yeah, there's no fastest route. You had to figure it out yourself.
Exactly. And sometimes it's like, well, can I actually go through here? There's no indication of time-based changes. Because let's say, there's construction here now. I'm not allowed to go this way anymore.
Yep.
Because these were snapshots of real life, not real time like we have with Google Maps these days. Like I said, it was miserable. I mean, I get it. That was the way to do it. But I never liked maps. And the other thing that I hated about those paper maps is the inability to fold them back up.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I don't know how they do it, but they make it so that it's almost impossible to fold them back up correctly.
Yeah, you'd have this huge friggin' map that like cover your windshield, and they'd fold it down into this tiny little thing.
And they fold it in such a weird way. It's like when you try to do it yourself, you find that, I can't crease it down properly. You fold it backwards as a result.
Well, there you go. We both used a paper map. Here's a nice easy one. Owned a dictionary.
Oh yeah, of course. Do people not own dictionaries? I thought there was, on everybody's shelf there should be a dictionary and a Bible. That's like,
what? Why?
Isn't that what Jesus would want?
Is that what Jesus would want?
I don't know. But seriously, like, no, dictionaries are really, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah, you're right. I don't have one now, but no, I definitely used and owned a dictionary.
Yeah, me too. Several. I had several dictionaries.
Did they describe different things, different words, or was it just general
Well,
dictionaries?
it's like anything. I mean, go on the web and look up a Merriam.
Oh, you
Just
mean
use
just
the
different
internet.
companies?
Just
Yeah.
use the internet version of a different. Yeah, but also translation ones, and like
Yeah. Yeah. The translation ones, if you're learning a language or use a language, those are valuable.
yeah. In the same vein, owned an encyclopedia.
Yes, I believe so. Just
Yeah, I never had
well,
one
my
of those.
family
Like,
owned one. I mean, I didn't own one. I didn't need my own.
well, good enough. Yeah, yeah. Maybe not a full 26 volume set or
Exactly.
something like that.
We just had the letter A.
I know.
Remember, they used to come in letters, right? They like 26, meaning that there was anything that starts with the letter A would go in the A book, and then you have the B one, which is for things starting with letter B. That's crazy to think that that's how it used to be categorized, whereas now it's like, well, you just search for anything you want.
Yeah, the thing with encyclopedias, I don't know. I always had the problem with like not finding the one I wanted. It just always seemed like there was always one missing from a set. Whether it was at home or in a library or whatever, it always felt like one was missing.
They're trying to get you. They're like they know you're onto them, so they're taking away the resources that you need to find them.
Yeah. It was always the one I wanted. Yeah. Why?
What there was the letter Y.
Yeah, maybe.
I also used to use what was it, Encarta
Yep.
on the PC, which is obviously it's
Oh,
not
right.
paper,
Yeah.
but man, I don't think people understand that before Wikipedia and being able to search things on the web, that's what you had. You had an application on your Windows computer or Mac or whatever that came on a disk and had all the encyclopedic knowledge, but just in digital form.
Yeah, we didn't have the internet when we wanted that extra oomph on our computer. It had to be a CD or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you were still stuck within that ecosystem. You know what I always liked? And they still make them. I like the National Geographics.
Oh yeah, they still exist, definitely.
They still exist. Yeah.
You like them for the pictures?
I'll learn about stuff. Yeah,
You can see naked people.
the naked African women. Absolutely.
Yeah, but naked anything. You could see anything naked in there. They never clothe people who they put in the photos there. That's how they entice the youngins.
Yeah, that's exactly what their strategy is. Absolutely.
I do wonder how successful, like, obviously in the old days they would have people subscribing to the magazine and they would have it delivered and so on. I wonder how much that's fallen off, the physical copies of those over the years. They still do release them digitally, but like I don't know, I find it difficult to justify subscribing to a digital magazine because the whole point of those was like they're like coffee table books.
Yeah, it's true. If I were to subscribe to something, magazine or something, I'd want the physical version. I don't want the digital version. I don't want to sit in front of my computer and read the newspaper or read a magazine or something like that.
Well, or even use a tablet or something.
Or a tablet, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I don't like using tablets to read. I like the physical book. Always have, always will. But yeah. All right, last one. Here we go. This is a pretty easy one. Paid with a paper check.
Yes.
Yep, me too. I actually still pay with a paper check. My rent every month is a paper check.
For what it's worth, though, I've only paid, I think, with a paper check once or twice. So very rarely, because checks, that was one of the things that I never really had to do anything with checks. Because I guess like it was the time where I could have either earned money with a check and then had to deposit the check. But for the longest time, I've had direct deposit or equivalent ways of getting money or sending money. It was, I think, one or two cases where I had to use a check.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, well, we're not talking about, getting money. Yeah. Talking about specifically using a check to write a payment.
No, I just wanted to say in general, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I still use it. Actually, there was such a long period of time where I never used a check. When I first moved to university in Ottawa, I opened I got checks. I got checks. I don't think I opened anything.
So you found some checks on the street.
But I got checks. I got 2 books of checks, maybe, I don't know, 50 checks, something like that. And I used them for the 4 years I went to university because that's how I paid my landlords in Ottawa. And then for 10 years, I don't know however long it was between leaving university and now in the place I'm at. Never used a single check. So it was just this year that I finally finished off the checkbook that had my original checks from when I first moved to university when I was 18.
Good stuff. So that checkbook, I assume because you said it was very general, you didn't have your address on it or anything like that.
I think it was tied to somewhere that was fine.
All right, fair enough. Because I think that's one of the problems I find is because I had checkbooks for some address, but then that address, because I never use them, so they're worthless now because it's the old address and it's actually like it's an inaccessible address.
I think it was just tied to a P.O. box in
Oh, I see.
my hometown, so it was fine because I always had that. It was always my family's P.O. box. So that's how infrequently I use checks just to pay rent. That's it. And I wish I didn't have to use checks to pay rent because it's a pain in the ass. Because I got to write out because I got to give them all my checks at the beginning of the rental period of the rental year.
Oh, you have to like post date them?
Yeah. So the night before, I sit there writing out 12 checks. By the end, my hand hurts so much.
It's like you're a famous person. You're autographing.
You know what I learned? If you write a lot of signatures, your signature should be something that doesn't have a lot of wrist movement.
Just a straight line.
It should be something that, you use your arm, like your wrist stays straight, and you use your arm to make it. And then your hand doesn't get tired.
So it's just like a big X on everybody's page.
Well, it doesn't have to be a big X. There's a lot of any famous person. That's why you see the loopy kind of things that don't always make sense because that's just, they can just use their arm and they can just get through it really fast. So you can use something that, that does indeed symbolize your name. Just, that's how you're supposed to do it. You learn to use your arm instead of your wrist.
Do you have a signature in mind for when you start autographing things for people?
When I start becoming famous?
Yeah.
I don't think because I sign a lot of stuff at work, I've kind of gotten used to already starting to do that.
Oh, look at you, like a famous celebrity.
That's right. So I remember that advice and I've kind of started doing that. I don't sign hundreds of things or whatever, but...
Well, you signed dozens of things. That's close to hundreds.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, but that's how you're supposed to do a signature if you want to sign a lot of things. Anyways, that's our quiz.
That was pretty good. So what's our result? What's our score? How boomer are we?
Well, I think the only thing we said we never used was boombox outside.
Right.
And that was a little bit iffy, depending on the definition of a boombox. So, we are 1 for 20. So we're pretty boomer.
Ah, booming.
We're booming. We're pretty boomer. We're old school. You show us somebody who was born in the last 20 years and they won't know most of this stuff.
Unless they're hipsters.
Unless they're hipsters. That's true. I hate hipsters.
It's funny. So, like, let's say somebody's not trying to be a hipster, though. Let's say they just grew up in the past somehow. Maybe their family was really old-fashioned, old school, and so they grew up as we grew up. Would you hate them?
No, because then they're not a hipster.
Okay. So if like a teenager came up to you and had the exact same traits that we displayed while talking about this boomer quiz, you'd be fine with that teenager.
Yeah. Being old is not a hipster.
Well, they wouldn't be old, though.
Well, acting old or living in the past, unironically, is not being a hipster.
Oh, a hipster would be doing it ironically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know. Like, there's more to being a hipster than just living in the past. They wear the fucking beanies, and they have the beards, and the man buns, and the tight-ass faded jeans, and they're going to lecture you on every little life choice you've made because it doesn't align with theirs. There's a lot more to being a hipster than just, I use postcards because running a computer costs electricity, which damages the earth, man.
I think you're thinking of hippies.
They're the same thing.
No, hipsters are way different than
absolutely
hippies.
They're not. They're absolutely the same thing.
You would never
Hipsters are
see a
just-
hippie go to, because a hipster, in my opinion, is somebody who goes to coffee shops and like basically is the equivalent of a barista.
Yeah.
A hippie would never do those things.
Right, but they're equivalent for their time periods. Like hippies were 70s, 80s kind of guys. Hipsters are 2000s. Like they're the same thing. They're just different generations.
What's the equivalent in the 90s?
I don't know. Probably somewhere in between. Some fucking mid-evolution.
Yeah, but I wonder. Think about it. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Because hippies definitely didn't last
They
through
were
the
still kind of
80s.
hippies.
Nah,
Yep.
no, no,
Well,
no.
no, there was hippies in the 90s still.
I don't believe it.
The ones in the 90s were like the ones who were like stuck in the disco age. That's the equivalent there. Like they still wore the baggy clothes and they had the sunglass glasses. You know, the ones that were just like orange. They still looked like they were they looked like they were out of the 70s and 80s, but it was the 90s. That was the equivalent. And then they morphed into hippies. I don't know. 90s were a weird time. I feel like 90s didn't have a real identity. I think people will argue with that, but I just feel like the 90s did not have an identity. The 90s identity was stealing from the other ages, like hanging on before finally accepting that it was time to move on. Like that to me was what the 90s were. Like the 70s, you know, even the 60s had like a distinct like feel to them in music, in video.
Are you saying the 90s didn't have distinctive music?
No, I don't think they did. I feel like it was
You're
like,
not a fan of Limp Bizkit?
but again, that felt like, but it goes back to like, it still felt like that was the traditional period or the transitional period.
Wow, I don't know. I would say the music
like
in the
there's
90s was
nothing
different
unique.
from the 80s.
I don't know. I
and-
feel like there was nothing unique to 90s music. Like I feel like it just kind of bled into the 2000s and then it just changed.
Well, I think the 80s music was different from the 90s music. 80s music had a lot of the, I don't know how to, like, new wave type of stuff. Whereas 90s, it became more of just like punk rock. Because, you know, like Blink 182, that type of music. That was all of 90s. Well, late 90s, I guess.
See, but here's my problem with what you're saying. You said Limp Bizkit, Blink 182. I have no idea what their general style is. No idea. You could not tell me one single 90s band and I would know and I'd be like, "Oh, that style." I would never know that. You could say something from the 80s, you could say something from the 70s, from the 60s, you could say something from the 2000s and 2010s, and I'd be like, "Oh, I got you."
Well, what do you mean? Give me
The
an
90s,
example. Give me an example
the
of what you mean
90s,
by
I'd
style.
never be able to like they
No,
don't
give
stand
me
out to
something
me.
from the
It's
80s.
just
Give me something from the 80s.
no. I can't do it to you. You'd have to do it to me because I don't know enough about music in general.
What do you want me to do then? Do you want me to say a band from the 80s?
Who's a band from the 80s?
Well, Duran Duran, wasn't that from the 80s?
Were they from the 80s?
Yes, I think so.
I don't know. I don't want to argue this point too much because I'm not a big music person. So
Well, so then you
But I
can't
just
really
fe-
make the point.
well, but I was trying to make it in general, not in like you like jumped right to music and like
No, we can jump to movies or something too.
okay, what was special about the 90s?
Well, then,
movies?
so 90s movies,
I guess I'll give like the comedy movies. There was nothing like 90s comedy movies.
But they also did, so to your point, I felt that the 90s movies they took what the 80s movies started and just continued with it.
So no identity.
What's the difference to say identity or not? Can you, if I give you a movie that was made either in the 80s or the 90s, would you necessarily be able to tell that it came from the 80s or the 90s? You could just argue that whole 20 years, the 2 decades there was the same thing.
I mean, maybe that's the way to go then, is to say the 80s and 90s were kind of a universal generation. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. I just feel like I grew up in the 90s as a kid and
And you're spitting on them at this point.
well, yeah, them. You hear, I don't know, you just hear about the way things were in the 70s and the way things were in the 80s and now you can see the way things are in the 2000s and I guess we're in the 2020s now or whatever. And I don't know. I look back to the 90s and I just feel like, oh, there was nothing special. The 70s can say, oh, they started all these movements. The 80s can say they started all these movements. What the can the 90s say?
What movements started in the 80s?
Well, that's when they continued all the women's. Well, the 80s is when they started really the gay stuff, the gay rights stuff.
Is that when it started?
Yeah, isn't that when all the AIDS stuff and all that came out? That's when the gay movement started.
But was it the 80s?
I think it was the 80s. I'll look. 1981. So all that happened in the 80s. So they had that. I don't know. What the 90s really had, because that's when Desert Storm was they had kind of the anti-war movements, but that started with Vietnam anyways. So I don't know. I just feel like as a kid from the 90s is like, I can't speak about the 90s the way my parents spoke about the 70s and 80s and the way my grandparents spoke about the 40s and 50s. I feel like we didn't have that identity that they had.
And you're bitter about it.
I'm not bitter about it. I really don't care. We just don't. I don't know. I just feel like there's nothing special about the 90s. And 2000s started with the terrorist stuff, so that's when, it's not the most fondest thing, but, the 2000s had their own thing.
The 2000s had the terrorist movements.
Well, it had the safety stuff, and that's really when all the nationalism came out in North America. And
so basically, the gist of it is that the 90s were a peaceful time.
90s were nothing time.
Well, it's a peaceful time.
Because they weren't peaceful, but they weren't peaceful.
Well, in what way?
Well, like I said, we had the 90s had Desert Storm.
Okay, but I mean, every decade had some issue, but relatively speaking, it was a relatively peaceful time.
It was not a lot happened. I mean, in terms of big events, that's true. Not a lot happened.
Which I would argue is a pretty good thing. To grow up in the 90s means you don't grow up with too much conflict.
Well, it's true.
Just imagine growing up these days. It's miserable.
Yeah.
Just imagine growing up in the 80s or the 70s, and you're not one of the people who don't have any sort of prejudice against them. It's miserable. So, I don't know. I feel like the 90s were like right there in terms of being normal.
Yeah, they probably were the decade that was most normal in modern times. I would say that's probably a fair statement. A lot happened in the 70s and 80s. The Reagan days and the Nixon days, those were the 70s and 80s, and the early Bush days. Those were kind of tumultuous times. And then, 90s we did have a period of prosperity for sure. But that's boring. I want civil war and
terrorism.
Well, not terrorism.
So what do you want then?
Terrorism's boring. No, terrorism's boring. Some friggin' extremists blow something up and then we retaliate. Like, that's boring.
But the problem is, though, they don't even have to do anything. And just the fear of it is what gets people up in arms.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
It's a psychological war at that point. But yeah, civil war, I guess, people love civil war.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it civil,
Brother fighting brother, father fighting son. There's nothing that brings a family closer together than mutual bloodshed.
That's what The Patriot taught us. Remember that movie with Mel Gibson?
No.
That was a good movie.
I don't think I ever watched that.
Maybe we'll watch it on our list. Who knows?
So here's the thing. This is the perfect bleed over into the movie review,
right,
for Ocean's 11 today.
Did you watch it?
Because I did watch it.
Uh-huh.
Because I was watching it and I just go, I don't really care about any of these pretty boy famous actors.
Oh, okay.
Like, I just don't. Like, so same with Mel Gibson. Like, I don't watch it. He's never been on my list of must watch. Like, I don't care about his movies. Everybody talks about Braveheart and whatever, and I just don't care. And it's the same with George Clooney. It's the same with Brad Pitt. It's the same with Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, I don't care about any of those guys. They're considered A-listers and all that. To me, I could not care less about those guys. That movie kind of made me realize it. Like, I just don't care.
Because they're pretty boys.
Well, no, they just make, I don't know. I feel like their movies aren't anything. Like, and they're not anything I'm interested in. And, actors will generally fall into a certain type or style of movie or what have you. And they've just never done it. They've never done anything for me. So everybody swoons over them. I couldn't care less. So like with Ocean's 11, like, I didn't care about those guys. I liked that Bernie Mac was in it. I was surprised to see Topher Grace. Topher Grace, that's his name, the one from the 70s show.
As himself?
Yeah, but that's all he's capable of doing.
Hold on now. That's not true. He played a good Eddie Brock.
Wasn't he still like that kind of person? I don't care that he played a good Eddie Brock because maybe
his hair
the role
was different.
suited to who he was.
His hair was different.
Right. Okay. So you're agreeing with me. Topher Grace can only play Topher Grace.
But that's the case with a lot of actors. The point is we like to watch them, and that's good enough. Like, why would you need complexity? And by the way, I just want to mention, in case people are confused, we're talking about Ocean's 11 2001, not the original, because this is a remake of the movie from the 60s.
I was like, maybe I'll just watch this one because it was fucking easier to find. I was like, I'll just watch the 1961. And I like Sammy Davis Jr., so probably will like that movie more. I did not like this movie, though. I did not like this movie. But it was just another one of those, like, it's okay.
Well, let me tell you how I feel.
All right. Yep, go for it.
I found that I don't agree with you with the pretty boy remark because ultimately I'm happy with watching films with these actors, but I found that the characters in this movie were just not memorable, like none of them. The other problem I had with this was that why was there nothing at stake? Like nothing. It felt like there was nothing at stake with the heist.
In terms of what?
Well, I don't know. Just for something like I'm always comparing a heist movie to Italian Job. Italian Job had things at stake where it's like if this doesn't work out, people die, right? It's a big deal if the heist doesn't work out. Whereas here it's like, well, I mean, I don't know what happens if it doesn't work out. They were willing to bluff about the fact that, oh, we're just going to destroy all the money if you come after us or if you do something fishy. I was never at the edge of my seat like, oh my God, what happens? What's going to happen if this doesn't work out? And the other thing was everyone stayed loyal. And the movie tried to make us doubt that people would stay loyal, but ultimately none of them turned out to be trying to betray the team, which fine, whatever, but again, that doesn't really add to any sort of tension if you just think that everybody's best friends with each other at this point.
Okay, but here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know what your expectation going into this movie was, but I mean, I guess you're right with the stakes, but at the same time, like, this movie was made to be this A-lister blockbuster fun romp through a thing. So I never expected there to be high stakes. I never expected there to be a serious plot. And then in terms of people not turning, you don't get that with A-listers. A-listers don't often play bad guys. The George Clooney's and the the George Clooney's and the Brad Pitts, they don't often play bad guys. So I didn't expect there to be double crossings and backstabbings and all that,
But they tried to do it. They tried to sneak it in at one point, and it just felt lazy to me when they did it.
Well, when did they sneak in a backstabbing? They didn't really.
The fact that they basically told Clooney to get off the team because he was a liability.
I don't think that was a backstabbing, though. I think that
it wasn't backstabbing, but it was
creating
basically
a little bit of tension in the group.
Yeah, but that was their meager attempt. I don't know. It felt very light. And I get it now. You're right that it's a blockbuster. It's not, but again, I'm comparing it to Italian Job, which was also a blockbuster. And
I don't know what that is.
The Italian Job, that's another heist movie. Also a remake of an old heist movie called The Italian Job from, I guess, the 60s or whenever. But man, I thought that one was way better. I mean, the other thing was the part where the Asian injures his hand. I thought they were going to go somewhere with that.
Mm-hmm.
And all he does is wrap it up, and his acrobatics are unchanged. And the only reason that there's some tension there is because his bandage gets caught in the door. I don't know. I felt like, man, you could have done so much more with this.
I mean, it's true. They had 2 hours, and there wasn't a lot that happened in 2 hours. Maybe Ocean's 12 does more with that. Maybe the whole thing was Ocean's 11 supposed to be the start. Kind of get in, establish who these guys are. And then Ocean's 12 is the one where they can start doing a movie.
Yeah, this was the tutorial.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't anything. I don't think it was anything special. It was a heist movie. They stole $150 million from some rich casino jerk,
which is like nothing now. Nowadays, 150 million.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Will that last you a couple of years?
Yeah. They had a big cast. It was nice to.
I think this was Julia Roberts' first movie because it titled her as
What?
Introducing Julia Roberts. Whenever somebody has the moniker introducing before their name, it means that this is their first film.
No, it's not. She did Pretty Woman in 1990. That's what put her on the map.
But I don't know. I don't know why it says introducing then.
I don't know. I didn't see that, but I don't pay attention to that. But
are you sure she did Pretty Woman in the 90s?
She had Pretty Woman. She was in Hook. She was in Sleeping with the Enemy, Pelican Brief.
Are you
Best
sure that
Friend's
was
Wedding,
her?
Nothing Hill, Runaway Bride, Aaron Brockovich. All those were way.
Hold on. I want to see if that was actually her. Maybe it was some evil twin.
I think they just said introducing in a way that sometimes they like for one reason or another. I don't know why. Sometimes they just put like somebody at the end and they go and starring or
hold on.
And also
I'm glad I brought this up. No, because I will tell you the definition of introducing means that it's their first role. But look. So here,
yeah, but it's not.
It is actually. It is. That's the official definition. But let me read the trivia bit from IMDb. So Julia Roberts is credited with the words, "and introducing Julia Roberts as Tess. This is a production joke. Introducing credits are usually reserved for actors in their first ever screen role, or at least their first prominent role early in a career. But when Ocean's 11 came out, Roberts was entering her second decade of stardom. She was at the time the highest paid actress in history and already an Oscar winner." So there you go. That's
That was a joke.
just a full-on joke. Good for them.
There you go. There you go.
If I didn't know when the movie came out, I would have believed it.
She wasn't even a prominent role in this.
Well, that was my other gripe. There was no backstory about why did she leave him, aside from the fact that he turned out to be a thief. But then suddenly she comes back to him, despite the fact that he's still a thief.
Well, that confused me more than anything, that she went back to him over nothing. Like, why'd she go back? Because the other guy said that he'd protect his money over the girl? And that was enough to say, oh, I'm going to go back to the other guy that I hate?
Mm-hmm. Women are fickle.
I mean, the movie was what it was. It was fine. It was fine. I didn't hate watching it. I've hated more movies than that we've watched.
So tell me, between Ocean's 11 and Abduction, which one did you prefer?
This one.
You preferred Ocean's 11?
Abduction is the worst. Okay, my most hated list right now is Abduction, and then that Christian Slater one.
Whoa, okay. Pump Up the Volume was your second hated movie?
And then what was my third one? Probably this. No, Gran Torino. That's my bottom three.
Wow, this movie has high praise from you. Congratulations. Hollywood did right by you.
Why?
Because you liked it.
I didn't say I liked it. It's just not my bottom three.
Yeah, but we didn't watch that many. It's above average.
No, it's sitting at about average. How many have we watched? Like 6 or 7?
Yeah, I think you watched it a little bit less, but...
I've watched one less than you because I didn't watch the Paul Rudd one. But I think I've watched... Because
you did watch VHS, yeah.
No, I didn't watch VHS.
But you watched it a long time ago.
Yeah, but not as part of this. But like, this is literally right in the middle, because outside Bridesmaids, Rough Night, and that baby movie. So yeah, this is literally right in the middle.
Wait, what baby movie? I'm trying to think now.
The one where the two people who hate each other.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Life as We Know It. Yeah, that was a good one. Classic.
So this one's right in the middle of the things so far for me. So no King of the Hill for me. What about you?
Well, so surprisingly, because I went into the movie thinking, man, I'm gonna love this movie. I love heist movies. But honestly, yeah, it was kind of this is one of those movies where you say, oh, you hated Abduction way more. I would rewatch Abduction before I would rewatch Ocean's 11.
That's interesting. I think Abduction was a genuinely bad movie. This was just.
But you know what? Abduction was exactly
what I would have expected. It wasn't. I didn't even find Abduction entertaining. This one I thought was more entertaining, even though not a lot happened. I thought this one was more entertaining. I would say the only part that I actually disliked is I genuinely disliked Brad Pitt. I thought everything else was serviceable, except for Brad Pitt. I did not like his role. I don't know if it was the character or the way he plays it. I don't watch enough Brad Pitt movies to be like, oh, this is just Brad Pitt in another movie.
That's just Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Well, then I don't like Brad Pitt, period. But I thought his role was, genuinely not good, but I thought everybody else did a serviceable job.
So if it was an Ocean's 10, you would love it.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't love it. I just, Brad Pitt didn't break the movie for me.
But seriously, it would have probably propped it up quite a bit if Brad Pitt wasn't in it.
Yeah, a little bit. I liked Matt Damon's character. I liked his character. I liked a lot of the side character. I like the side characters more than I like the main characters.
The team, I guess you're right. They could be considered side characters. I always thought the whole team was the main character.
You can't have 12 main characters in a 2-hour movie. It's just not possible.
But they tried. That's the problem. That's why I felt like the movie had a lot of going back and forth, and so it was hard to focus on anything as a result.
Yeah, but I liked Matt Damon. I liked the two mechanic guys, the brothers. I thought their little thing was funny. Don Cheadle as a British guy was an interesting choice. I don't know why they did that, but why not? The old guy, the elderly con man, that was pretty. When he was watching the security video and he was sweating profusely, I thought that was funny because I thought that was just completely out of character. But I don't know, maybe that's the type of guy he was. But I was like, why are you doing this?
Well, I mean, they said he got out of the game because he was getting ulcers.
Oh, so maybe that's
So
what it
he
was.
does have a tendency, like he struggles physically
Keep his
from
composure.
being
Yeah.
a thief. Yeah.
But so I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, I liked the side characters a lot more than. But I would say there were two main ones. It was George Clooney and Brad Pitt. I think those were the two main ones. I would have considered everybody else as a side character. But Bernie Mac was fine. I always enjoy Bernie Mac's stuff. He doesn't have a lot. I don't think he has a lot of stuff under his belt. Unfortunately, he passed away too soon to get more. But I enjoy Bernie Mac. Anyways, that's where I stand. And I'm surprised you said that this one was worse than Abduction. I just
No, I didn't say it's worse. Like as a movie, I can see why this one was objectively better. But my scale of like, would I rewatch it? I would more likely rewatch Abduction because I found Abduction was
okay.
was more difficult to follow. I wanted to just get all the Easter eggs and the tidbits by watching it again. Whereas Ocean's
There's no
11, it's
Easter
like,
eggs. You think they thought that much? You think they thought that much about Easter eggs? They didn't think anything about Easter eggs in that movie.
honestly, like I said though, I found it more entertaining, so I would rewatch it. But in terms of King of the Hill, Pump Up the Volume is still up there,
Interesting.
which is a massive surprise because I genuinely thought that I would love Ocean's 11 probably more than all the other ones.
Yeah, I kind of thought you would too.
Very surprised by that.
Interesting, interesting. All right, well, next one. Is it my turn to pick or is yours?
I don't remember.
I think it's mine. I think you picked Ocean's 11. I did Pump Up the Volume. I know I did Pump Up the Volume. So, yeah, I think that's where we're at. All right. Random movie generator. Here we go. Randomize. Beautiful Boy, which I believe is Steve Carell and his son. No, it's not. Okay, it's not his son. I thought it's.
Just some random kid.
No, it's Timothy Chalamet.
Ah, okay.
I thought there was a movie that Steve Carell did with like his kid or something like that. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. But yeah, so that's what it is. Beautiful Boy, 2018. Steve Carell, Timothy Chalamet.
So his name's pronounced Chalamet? It's not Calamite, like the Dark Souls boss?
No, it's not Calamite. Who else is in this? Caitlin Dever. You wouldn't know who that is. I know who that is. She plays Eve on Tim Allen's Last Man Standing, which I'm currently watching, so I know that person. Amy Ryan looks familiar. Wait, is Amy Ryan from The Office?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Amy Ryan is the one that Michael Scott married in The Office, so she's in this. Oh, that's interesting.
So great. We got a comedy about addiction.
This is not a comedy.
Steve Carell is in it. It's got to be a comedy.
Steve Carell does a good number of serious stuff.
It's going to be funny.
Biographical drama film. Who's it biographying?
A drug addict.
Deals with father-son relationship increasingly strained by the son's drug addiction. How's it biographical then? Does Steve Carell's son?
No, it's biographical about somebody else.
Well, I get that, but it's not actually like saying like, oh, maybe David Sheff? I don't know who David Sheff is.
New York Times writer David Sheff's teenage son. Yeah, probably. It's about David Sheff.
All right, well, I don't know who the frick David Sheff is, so I don't know how much this one's going to speak to me. But that's our next one. Beautiful Boy.
All right. 2018, because there is apparently a Beautiful Boy 2010, so be careful. That one has Michael Sheen in it. We don't want to watch that one.
Is it the same premise?
No. I'm looking forward to seeing another comedy role from Steve Carell.
Absolutely. I feel like Steve Carell should not have left The Office. Although he didn't leave because he wanted to. He left because of some contract thing, I actually later found out. Because it always stunned me that he left. Usually these people leave because they want to have a movie career or something, right? And I feel like after Steve Carell left, he didn't do a hell of a lot of big stuff. Like he had like one or two, and then he just kind of went back down to where he was before. And I always thought like, why leave The Office? Like that's what made him. That's what made him. And it still went on for a good number of seasons after he left. And I was, I always thought of that. But then I learned later it was because of a contract thing. Or it was like nobody reached, I can't remember what it was. Nobody reached out to him to do the contract renewal. So he thought that they didn't want to. And then they realized that they didn't do the contract renewal. And by then he had already made up his mind. It was something.
So basically he was just channeling Michael Scott at that point.
Yeah. Why did Steve Carell leave The Office? I'm pretty sure I heard there was some thing going on, but some people just are still saying it was because he just wanted to have more time with his wife and kids.
I mean, that's pretty reasonable.
Well, it is reasonable, but I don't. That's not the story I heard. I don't know. Whatever. You never know the story, right?
You got to ask him yourself. You got to go find Steve Carell, corner him, and be like, "Man, you got to tell me, why'd you leave the office?"
Just get him on the podcast.
Well, you corner him and you ask him. You can ask him about the podcast too. Why not?
That's right. All right. Why don't you tell us what the word of fortnight is?
Word of the fortnight this time around is miasma. miasma.
I didn't know you had asthma. I'm sorry.
No. I don't have asthma. It's miasma, the word. The definition is a vapor from a swamp formerly believed to cause disease or a harmful influence or atmosphere. I actually used the kids' definition this time because I find the kids' definitions on Merriam-Webster are actually better than the regular definitions. So I'm going to start using those. They're much more concise and clear. My example, though, is, and I mean, I've heard miasma plenty of times, but let's just use the one from Dark Souls 1, which is in the intro cutscene. Nito unleashed a miasma of death and disease. I just like this word. I feel like people probably have seen it plenty of times, but I think the word, because, we talked about how some words, they feel, they describe something ugly and the word itself is ugly. But this is a contrast for me because I feel miasma sounds good. It sounds like a nice thing.
I've never attributed miasma to be a good thing.
Really? Well, I don't know, but it's like for me,
I always thought like very much in line with what your definition said, but I would have just very simply described it as like a poisonous mist or a poisonous fog or something like that. I never thought it was a good thing. It doesn't sound like a good thing.
I don't know, but see, I guess it's a subjective thing to think that this word sounds good to some people, it doesn't sound good to others.
Well, there we go. Miasma it is. All right. It's Pokemon time. Do 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 do. We are rating Pokemon sound effects. We are in the second round. So still some new ones, but now some old ones also from the last round. Here we go. We're on round 37 overall, between 25 and 40. Here's 25.
It sounds like a baby.
I don't think it sounds like a baby. It just sounds like a kitten or something
no,
like that.
It sounds like a baby. Yeah, it's like a baby in an echo chamber.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near. Well, yeah, maybe an echo chamber. I was gonna say I wouldn't want to be near any baby that makes that sound.
I don't know, man. Like, I think they just took somebody's baby off the street, recorded them in a hollow box, metallic box.
Yeah.
I hope they gave the baby back.
All right, 40.
Oh well, we've heard that one before. I think that one was one of the ones from before.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And it's boring to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and it has that crystalline effect. Yeah, the baby.
It does. Just for some reason, at the very end, they're just like, throw a crystal in there.
It's like a little instrument they have, the crystal
yeah.
instrument that they add.
There's just some guy in the background that just plays it at random times.
Play the baby again.
All right, here's the baby.
That's great. Oh, man, I'm so voting for that one.
All right, let's go with the baby. I like the baby too, though.
And it's short. You like those short ones.
Yeah, I like short ones.
Actually, this is one of the first ones where it's actually just the cry, as opposed to some weird shuffling or
That's true. Yep.
Rifling through the leaves.
That is true. Well, there you go. All right, the baby goes on. Number 38, between 9 and 73. Here's number 9. What the
I like that one. That was good. It's like a laughing. Somebody laughing.
It is kind of like a laugh thing. Yeah. All right, that was 9. Here's 73. That one's pretty standard.
Yeah. So I'm going with 9. I like 9.
Yeah, me too.
It's going to be the cry against the laugh.
I like it. All right, 39, between 24 and 88. Here's 24.
Okay, like a spaceship lifting off.
Yeah, maybe a lights. I don't know. I think if a spaceship made that little noise when lifting off, that's pretty damn economical spaceship.
Well, it's like a UFO, that type of thing.
Yeah, like UFO. Yeah. All right, here's 88. There were like 4 different sounds in there.
I remember when you first talked about that one.
Yeah, there were 4 different sounds in there. That's just like
It's a bird. It's a bird dropping a bomb.
it's the equivalent of a platypus. It was like Game Freak just had all these extra leftover sounds and they just merged them into one cry. There were literally like 4 sounds there. All right, let's listen to these again. 24. 88.
I like the bombacity of 88, so I'm gonna vote for that
Yeah,
one.
88 is very chaotic. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 88 also. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by 88. All right, last one, number 40. The big 4-0. Here between number 4 and 68. Here's 4.
It's like an alien communicating with people, with humanity.
It had really weird, like, aftershocks. All right, 68.
It's kind of...
That's pretty standard.
Yeah, it's very monotone.
Yeah, I'm going with 4.
Yeah, I wonder how they make those sound effects, honestly. Probably rudimentary, but clever that they do it that way.
You think so? I was kind of just assumed it was some... Like, they're not... I don't think they're going out and, like, practically making these sound effects.
Yeah, but still, to do it digitally, it's quite interesting that they're able to come up with something that's actually legitimate.
There's very few of these I consider legitimate, to be
but
fair.
the ones that do work, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, they seem like, oh yeah, well, this is cool. Maybe even if it's 1/10 of the sound effects that they've ever produced,
Yeah.
that's still impressive to think that, okay, well, I wonder how they made that.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, there we go, guys. Those are the 4 this week. See ya next week, the Thanksgiving episode.
Oh, American Thanksgiving.
Oh no, it'll be after. It'll land after Thanksgiving. It's still a Thanksgiving episode. Ciao.